It's a picture. Now I've lost it. There you go. Great to be here. I was here once before. I can't even remember what year it was, Todd. But was it? It feels like at least that when John Strachan's my brother-in-law, John and Kristen Strachan. So they were here at the time. We've had Dan over in Scotland before and had a good time with him and doing some teaching over there. So I'm thankful to be able to come here this morning. Now, I speak a little bit faster, and when I get excited, I speak even faster. So if I get to going too quickly, then someone just wave, and I will try and slow down. And there's someone waving at the back already. So we're in back. I'll be in my best behaviour. I'll try and speak very clearly. Things are going so great in the church in Scotland, and I'm going to jump around this a little bit. I want to show you a little video before we start, and then I'll go back to. So yeah, let me just let you listen to this. It's only 2 minutes long, and then I'll explain what's going on.
When God opens doors, it's more than an opportunity. It's a Jericho moment. Faith in God's faith in us can be intimidating, but the call is to march. God has opened many doors for us in Cumbernauld, but nothing like this. Our search for land was finding enough, but God's provision for us was more than we imagined. Prime real estate worth millions was obtained for a tenth of its value. It sits in the heart of our community and Scotland. It gives us the opportunity to be the literal city on a hill that cannot be hid. The rise of secularism has created discordant communities all over the world, and frustration that turns to anger and violence. It is evident that we live in a broken world. People are looking for a better community and a better way. God has already established the way and the community, His church. We believe that God has placed us in a position to rise to this moment that pushes back against the world's confusion. I see people in our church family shining the light of Christ in our community in ways that inspire others to come and know Him.
You should hear their stories. We're growing, we're together, we're ready. We are ready for this new chapter for us in His story.
We are so excited for this new chapter to see what God has in mind for us.
I feel like we have to ask ourselves, do we ask Him to answer only our prayers, or do we rise to His vision? In fact, if you scan that QR code, if you want to scan that at any time, it will take you to a 13-minute version of that video where it will explain more of what's going on, and you'll meet some of our congregation. You could probably tell there from the shop where we were worshiping, it's quite diverse. So we have 11 nationalities in our congregation already. Very, very close family. And everything's going so well. So it's kind of telling you a little bit about what's going on right now and talking about rising to God's vision and all the rest of it. But let me go back to how it began. So it's my wife Melanie in the middle there, and my daughter Nicole there on the right. Just when we were out walking one day up in Glencoe, which Dan, you've probably been at, probably came down through Glencoe, where the Campbells slaughtered the McDonald's, and some of them ran and hid in that valley there called the Lost Valley. But we planted the church there, obviously not Nicole, she wasn't born at the time. We planted the church there in 1987. There was no congregation of the Lord's Church in Cumbernauld or in the surrounding towns. Cumbernauld has about 60,000 people. And when you take in the surrounding towns, within about a 15-minute drive, you're talking about 250,000 people with no congregation. Stirling would have been the closest one, which would have been 15 minutes or slightly more just towards the east. So if you've watched Braveheart, that's where all of that happened in Stirling. So we're about 15 minutes from Braveheart country. The Cumbernauld, when we got there, Jed, what time do I need to finish? No later than 10:15. Okay, thank you. We'll maybe have some time for questions at the end if you want to do that. But when we got to Cumbernauld, the average age of the town, 60,000 people, the average age of the town was 25 years old. Very young town. It was set up as a town that would take families out of Glasgow so that they could, it wasn't a slum yet, but it was becoming overcrowded, and so they were wanting to try and make it a nicer place to live. So families could come and live about 30 minutes out of Glasgow and then commute, and that was our town. So we began to work immediately with young people, this age group here, right down the front. And we started a Bible class and a youth club right at the beginning with the idea of investing ourselves into their lives and getting into the lives of their families. So in Scotland, you've got this context, this history of Catholic v. Protestant. That would be Presbyterian over here. Church of Scotland, that's our national church, if you want to call it that. I was brought up Protestant. I was brought up Church of Scotland, although my parents were not religious. In fact, my dad hated God, hated church, hated religion, anything to do with it. So it didn't mean anything to me either, but if you were to ask someone in Scotland if you wanted to share your faith, they would say, no thank you, not interested, I have my own religion. And 9 times out of 10, that's going to be Catholic or Protestant. You may have some who say that who don't even believe in God. That's how little thought they put into where they are spiritually, normally, over the last probably 80 years, especially since the end of the Second World War, and when standards of living began to become a bit better. People are seeing Catholics fighting Protestants, hating Catholics, and rightly are thinking, if that's religion and if that's God, then I'm really not interested. Don't need anything to do with a God like that. So my parents' generation would still claim to be Protestant, but as far as I'm aware, in my lifetime, they were never in a place of worship other than, one, to get married, and then secondly, when I was baptized, sprinkled as a baby. That was the only times I ever know of them being in a place of worship. When my brother came along 5 years later, and I guess my dad's hatred for all things religious had grown by then, they didn't even have him sprinkled. Okay, so that's the environment we're growing up in. How I became a Christian, that's another story. We'll probably save that for another time. Maybe we'll have a chance to visit afterwards. It's kind of interesting, and I will give you this little side note that my dad did become a Christian and became an elder in the Lord's church. So good ending to that, but not such a good beginning. So when you go over there, that's the reaction you're going to meet with. There's a great deal of apathy, and that apathy over the years has turned even to hostility, because those who society see or think of as Christians are not behaving like that. There's a lesson in there for all of us, but they're not behaving like that, so they become very hostile towards anyone religious or anyone who wants to share their faith. But we had great success at the beginning setting up this youth club. In fact, you'll know Jack and Maureen Strachan. I'll go through some of these. Jack and Maureen are the parents to John Strachan, who some of you know, and I'm sure you'll have met them. Some of you will have met them, I know that. And they actually converted the first couple in Cumbernauld, a couple called Ronnie and Mary Nielsen. That's them there. They're still faithful today. So they were baptized in 1985, and they were just traveling to East Kilbride every first day of the week and worshiping there. So when we graduated from Lipscomb, 1987, Todd, what were you? Same? Graduated in 1987, straight back to Cumbernauld, and Jack and Maureen had kind of earmarked Melanie and I, because I married their daughter, to go and begin the work in Cumbernauld. So that's what we did. Got some opposition. It was very difficult in those beginning years. There's still some difficulties now. That there was some vandalism in a place that we would rent you'll see the building later. We rent a little building that was maybe as wide as this center section, and would maybe go from the front, not even to the TV, all right? And so we would rent, but it would be attacked because we were worshiping there. Some of the local youth wouldn't appreciate that. They would vandalize. This would happen while we were in worshiping, okay? So this isn't overnight. There's a roller shutter that comes down and protects that door overnight, But then while we're in there worshiping, we would come out, and this is the kind of thing that we would see. Some of our ladies received threats. I've been threatened with an axe and had bottles thrown at my head and things like that. That didn't happen all the time, but it wasn't uncommon either. So we would hire a school hall because there was more space. We hired a school hall to have the Bible class and the youth club midweek. Now, we do ours on a Tuesday night. That's okay. It's still scriptural. We're not heretics or anything. All right, so we have our children's Bible classes on the Tuesday night, and we have our adult Bible classes on the Thursday night, so that those who teach in the Bible class can still be part of the adult class. And we've never really changed that. We probably could now. But these are some of the kids that we had way at the beginning. We started off the youth club we had two boys, two brothers. Stuart Craig and Scott Craig came along to our first Bible class. And we had rented a different hall. And we said, okay, next week, come along, bring your friends. And we'll have a good time. We'll have Bible class. We'll have a youth club afterwards. We'll play some games, all of that sort of stuff, have some activities. So we said, meet us here at this lamppost, street light, you call it. So meet us here at the street light, and we'll go to the hall that we've hired. We'll take you there. And bring your friends. So we showed up the next Tuesday, and there they were, 18 of them. Scott and Stuart and 16 of their friends. And we had a little car. You guys call it the Opel Kadett. For us, it was the Vauxhall Astra, but it was the exact same car. Tiny little car, 2 doors, and a little 1.2 engine. And we had 15 minutes to get those 18 kids to the hall. So it was me driving, Melanie in the front. We stuck 8 kids in the back for the first run, dropped Melanie and those 8 off, and went back and got the other 10, 2 in the front seat and another 8 in the back. And that's how we built our youth work. And the youth program has been solid and strong from that day. I'm pleased to say we've never had a lull. We've never had a break. We've been really blessed. We've worked hard to do that, but God has really blessed us with a really good program. Now, while we're doing that, and we are always reaching out to the parents, we're trying to get into their lives and share the gospel with them, share our faith. No, thank you, not interested, have my own religion. That's the answer you always get. They won't go anywhere, but they will have been born Catholic or Protestant. And so they're not interested in talking to you. So we keep on trying that. That's trying to decide if I have time to tell you a story. I won't tell you the whole story. There's a couple who are members of the church in Cumbernauld today, still faithful. And it took us 3 of their children coming to our Bible class and teaching them, and they would come. The oldest daughter came and went. Second daughter came. We actually managed to establish a one-on-one Bible study with them. That's big in our work. We do a lot of one-on-one Bible studies. So over here, there's an expression, I think you use friendship evangelism. Yeah, we don't have any other kind. That's all we do. Now, we have different tools that we will use to build those friendships. But we are not, by and large, 99 times out of 100, we are not going to be able to share our faith with someone until we have picked away at the walls that they've put up between them and religion and God and become their friend. And then that's what happened with this family. No, thank you, not first daughter's coming along. No, thank you, not interested. First daughter goes. Second daughter comes along. We have a Bible study with her. She never becomes a Christian. All the time, knocking on the door, talking to the parents. Hey, we're going on a trip. We're going swimming. We're going to the theme park next week. Emma wants to come along. We need your signature. By the way, we'd love for you to come to church. No, thank you, not interested. Third child, their son comes along. We start a Bible study. He becomes a Christian. We're knocking on their door. They're not interested. They don't even come to his baptism. All right? But we're friends now. We're very sarcastic in Scotland. Our sense of, if you ever come to Scotland, don't take it personally. Well, in fact, do take it personally if we're sarcastic to you, because we're only sarcastic when we like you. So we'll go easy your first day, but then the second day, it's going to be pretty rough. But it's because we like you, so don't worry about it. So we've got that going with these parents. Banter, we call it. I don't know if you use that word, but we call it banter. And so third son comes along, becomes a Christian. They don't even come, but we've got a good relationship now. Long story short, Karen's dad becomes ill. They need someone to drive them to hospital, 45 minutes away, 3 times a week, because they don't drive. So we do that for 3 weeks. Captive audience in the car. We can say whatever we like. They can't go anywhere. But we have that kind of relationship. 2 weeks later, we have a gospel meeting, kind of similar to what Dan came across and did for the church in Scotland there. And I knock on the door, Karen, a little bit of small talk, a little bit of banter. And I had said to her a couple of years before, I said, I'm going to get you. No, not interested. No, I'm going to get you. You're going to come to church. No, not interested. Now I go and I say, Karen, we've got a special meeting coming up, guest speaker, I'd love for you to come along. And she says, fine, I'll come. You know, and she felt obligated. I don't care about that. I don't care why she comes first. We're just planting seed, you know. And so she came. They're both now faithful Christians. 15 years that took. 15 years and 3 kids. So it's kind of slow. It's a slow grow. But we're getting into those lives slowly but surely. Youth group's doing great. Slowly but surely getting some of their families to come along, parents, baptizing them into Christ. And we're in a little hall. That's just some more of the kids. Youth club's pretty rough in Scotland. It's a rough area. And so some kids come along for the first time. It's a bit of a shock, but you quickly get into it. But it can be pretty rough, some of the games. So this is a little hall we're in. That's getting vandalized and damaged. And the way we're growing, and it's slow, maybe a baptism a year is good. It wasn't unusual to have a year without one. Most years we had at least a baptism. Sometimes we had 2. If it got really exciting, I think a couple of times we had 3 baptisms in a year over the last 38 years. So those were the good ones. And within this little hall, we know we're going to outgrow it. We don't have our youth work in there because there's too many kids coming, so we still hire the high school to have our youth club and our Bible classes midweek for the children. But everything else is in here. All our fellowship, we fellowship all the time. We live in each other's back pockets in Scotland. We're out in a culture where there are very, very few people who have a spiritual interest, let alone are Christians. And so we find it really important to be together as much as we can. So we're doing a lot in there, but we know we have to find somewhere else. So, no, that's the video. Let me go back to that later. Okay. So we're looking for some land. And the way it works in Scotland, you've got the land that would be sold to construction companies who build homes and businesses and that sort of thing. That land is $1.5 million an acre. Yeah. So even if we could afford that, we don't even get offered that kind of land because they know they can get more money from commercial companies. So we're usually looking for a piece of land that they know they can't sell to those guys. Maybe it's behind a pub, or maybe the roads are in such a way that they're not going to let them build what we call a multi-user site. It would be homes and shops and that sort of thing. So they don't even tell you where they are. They say, go and find somewhere, put a proposal together, and then send it in. So we did that for several years. Every time, the answer's no. No, no, for years. One time we went down with one of the guys from the council because we'd been asking for so long. He said, let me take you down and we'll look for some land around the town, see if I can help you. Because we're now on first name terms with him. So he's in our car. He takes us down to this area called Kilns. And if you imagine this auditorium, the shape, imagine this is the whole site of land. And they say, okay, we own the land down here. So we asked about, say, that top corner. He said, no, you can't have that. And immediately. And we says, okay, what about this bottom corner here? He said, no, you can't have that. And we said, well, what about this corner here? And he said, oh, well, let me make a phone call. So he calls up the council office. He's on to them for about 3 or 4 minutes. He leaves the car. He's walking outside. And he comes back in. He says, no, you can't have that. So he says, what about this top corner here? He said, well, we don't own that. That's private. So that's out for us. Not only is it private land, $1.5 million an acre, probably, it's on the second busiest interstate in the country. So this is like the best piece of real estate we've ever seen in our lives as far as visibility, accessibility. There's on and off ramps in both directions right there next to it. It's incredible. So we wrote that off, never thought any more about it. Then Will was his name. Will tells us, guys, there's actually no more land for people like you. Now, he wasn't being offensive. He just meant non-profits, denominations, the church. There's no more land available. Everyone's broke. The government's broke. The local government's broke. So they're now looking for the most money they can get for each piece of land that they can. In fact, one of the couple of years before, we had said, another area of the town, can we have this piece of land? He said no. He says, well, look, in this community, there's no shop, there's no playground for the kids, there's no facilities for families. We think as a church we could bring those facilities to this community. Quote, he said, it is not my job, it's not my remit to worry about the facilities in the community. It is my remit to get as much for that piece of land as I can. So that's kind of what we were up against. Well, when he tells us there's no more land for people like us, we have to look at what else we can do. We'd looked at a few other options. It wasn't good at all. I can tell you about them another time, but I'm concerned about the time. So we remembered this bit of land down at Auchenkilns that was privately owned, right on the side of the interstate. It's not for sale. We don't know how big it is, but for some reason, and to be honest, and I've been over here telling this story this last 5 weeks, and about halfway through, when I was telling it, I thought, I can't even figure out why we phoned this guy, because it doesn't make sense. But we phoned him. In American football terms, you'd call it a Hail Mary phone call. That's what it was like. So we found out who owned it. It was a guy in Ireland. We called him up. In fact, it was Jack. We were all together, and it was Jack Strachan that made the call, because he was semi-retired, and he was over working with us, semi-retired from East Kilbride, kind of working with us in Cumbernauld by that time. So he calls up, and a little bit of small talk, and he says, hey, listen, I know you own the land at Auchenkilns, and it's not for sale. We don't know how big it is. So we just say, we'd like to buy an acre from you for £100,000. It's about $150,000, 10% of what it would be worth. We know that. And he laughed at us on the phone, and he said, quote, guys, this land is worth millions. I'm not going to sell you an acre for £100,000. Nobody's upset. This is the answer we expected. We weren't disappointed or anything. It's one of those things you just kind of try. And we hung up the phone, never thought any more about it. About 4 months later, out of nowhere, this land's been lying vacant for 50 years. And before that, but Cumbernauld been there about 50, 60 years. All of a sudden, it comes up for sale. Now, on the I don't know if you saw, when you watch the video again, you'll see that there is a hotel right next to it and 2 restaurants right next to it. So you can see what it's going to become, or what they intend for it to become. So all of a sudden, it comes up for sale, and there's no price. It's one of those, I don't know how you guys put it, but we have POA. So when something's for sale and it's really expensive, they put POA, and it means price on application. In other words, we don't like to tell you how much this is. You need to call so that we can have a conversation and try and talk you into it. So it's POA, so I call for the brochure. We call it the schedule. We're not buying it. I didn't tell them it's the church or anything. I just wanted to see it. I wanted to see how much it was worth and all of the rest of it. Just have a look. I was being nosy. So I called up the real estate agent in Glasgow. Guy called Gregor answers, and I said, I'd like you send me the schedule on the land at Auchenkilns, please. So he took my name and address, and he sent it to me, and I looked at it, and it was really nice. It was 3 1/3 acres, and it was valued at just under £4 million, so about $5.5 million, which is what we expected. So I looked at it for about 10 minutes, threw it in the trash, never thought any more about it. That was it. About 2 months later, I had our young people down in England on we go to like a theme park, Six Flags type thing every October. And so I had them down there. My co-driver wasn't able to come that trip at the last minute, so I was doing all the driving on my own all night. Usually we go into the park all night back. So I said, I need to get some sleep because I need to drive you home safely. So you guys are going to have to go in yourself today. And so for that reason, I was able to take this phone call that I'm about to get. About lunchtime, I'm sleeping in the front of the minibus, and my phone goes, and it's Gregor. And he says, Mr. Barr, I'm phoning to see if you're still interested in the land at Auchenkilns. And I said, Gregor, that land is too much for us. We can't afford that. It's too expensive. He said, well, what if I told you, no, that was later. He said, I know that it's listed at just under £4 million, but you could buy it for about £900,000. Well, that's a big discount, so it's kind of got my attention. If I'm going to ask him, we'd ask the owner, I'll ask this guy, would you sell us an acre? Didn't even mention the price. So he said, yeah, right away, we'll sell you an acre. So this could be it. You know, this could be the door. So I called the guys at home. I says, guys, told them about the call. I'm going to be home at 4 in the morning. You guys need to meet me at the land at Auchenkilns at 9 in the morning. We need to pray about this. Before we even got there the next morning, Gregor calls me back. He says, Mr. Barr still doesn't know it's the church. Mr. Barr, the owner doesn't want to divide the land into parcels. He needs you to buy the whole site. And I says, well, Gregor, that's too expensive for us. We can't afford that. And this is a quote. This is what he said. Let me forward that slide to something better. There you go. That's a little bit. I'll tell you about that later. This is what he said, quote, I'll never forget it. He said, I know I said 900,000, but what if I told you you could buy the whole site for something beginning with a 3? And I'm like, what in the world is going on? And as a Scotsman, I don't know if you know, Scotsmen we have a reputation, undeserved I might add, but a reputation for being a bit tight with money, all right? I think we're very generous people, but we have that reputation. They say, so that in my sport, and this is where we keep our money, and they say we only open this twice. And that's once to put our money in, and once to check it's still there. And that's it. So it's kind of how we are. So when he says something beginning with a 3, I'm thinking 301. And I know he's probably thinking 390, maybe 399, I don't know. But anyway, we can sort that out later, I figure. So I said, okay, Gregor, can you give me a couple of days? I need to talk to some of my colleagues. He still doesn't know it's the church. And so one of the elders from our sponsoring congregation and the preacher there was due over to us on the Monday. This was a Friday. They were due over to us on the Monday. We were hosting a seminar, again, kind of like Dan had come over and done for some different congregations. So they came over on Monday. He said, fine, yeah, I'll give you a couple of days. They came over on Monday, went down to the land. We spoke, we prayed. They said, you guys have got to go for this. This is once in a lifetime. We are 100% behind you. Called Gregor on the Tuesday morning. He called me back at Tuesday lunchtime. And I said, okay, we're interested. He said, great. So are 5 others now. We found out quickly all 5 of those were commercial interests, businesses, profit-making. We're the only non-profit. So I said, great, okay, well, what do we do? He says, you've got to have a legal offer. It's Tuesday lunchtime. You've got to have a legal offer on my desk by Thursday lunchtime. I had no clue what a legal offer looked like, how to do it, anything. So we called a guy called David Murray up in Aberdeen. He's an architect up there. Dan might have met him. Remember, it's about 2 hours north of us. He's an architect, and I thought he'll have some contacts. Sure enough, put us in touch with a guy in Glasgow, not a Christian, but a guy who does this kind of thing. He got us into the lawyer. We got it all ready. It was nicely prepared and presented, and we waited. On New Year's Eve, so we now that's when we found out that the other 5 are commercial offers, and they now know that our offer is from the church, because it has to be in the legal offer. So we're waiting, we thought, we'll see what happens, you never know. And by the way, we did offer 301. Something beginning with a 3, that qualifies, 301,000. There's sales tax of 20% added onto that. So the total offer was £361,000, about $550,000 for a $5.5 million piece of land. And obviously that's going to be the lowest offer, because even if he'd said the same thing to them, which I don't know if he did, they can't offer lower than that. So we waited, and he calls us back on New Year's Eve, and he said, Mr. Barr, I'm pleased to tell you that the Cumbernauld Church of Christ has been given preferred bidder status for the land at Auchenkilns. Couldn't believe it. I shouldn't say that, but it was amazing. And I was like, okay, great, what do we do now? He says, well, we just need to talk about payment. Honestly, and you're going to think I'm an idiot, and probably am in this situation, payment had never crossed my mind. I'd never thought about having to pay. So he's kind of caught me off guard, and he says, when can you pay? and this is the end of December, and I'm thinking on my feet now, and I said, well, end of March? I didn't know if we could pay end of March or not, but that's what I told him. Can we pay end of March? And he said, Mr. Barr, 4 of these offers, which you know are all way higher than yours, are ready to pay cash tomorrow. And I'm like, Gregor, I don't know what I can say. You now know this is the church. For us, this is the Lord's money. I know that might not mean a great deal in your circle, but we have to be careful. We have to be good, what we call good stewards. I said, there's all sorts of things we have to do before we can commit to paying for this land. And I said, and this is the order I told him. I says, firstly, we have to get a coal report done. Coal report. In Scotland, coal mining was huge back in the day, and there are a lot of disused coal mines that they don't know where they are for some reason, or I guess maybe something happened years ago where they made a mistake. But if you build on any vacant property in Scotland or Wales, you have to get a coal report done. And if there's a mine there, that's it. End of story. No building for anything. So I said, we need to get a coal report done. He would have known that. I said, secondly, we have to get it. We have to make sure that they'll allow us to rezone it, because it was zoned for a hotel, a car showroom, and more restaurants. And our zoning laws are super strict. So if you have a building there and you want to build something next to it, it has to be the same brick, it has to be the same roof tile, the windows have to be roughly the same design and with the same frames, all sorts of really, really strict. So we have to check they're going to be willing to rezone, because it's not zoned for a place of worship. And thirdly, so Gregor, we don't actually have any money at the moment. And he kind of snorted a little bit and he said, Mr. Barr, I'm going to have to go back and speak to the owner and the bank. First time the bank's been mentioned. We still don't know what was going on there. So I hung up the phone and I said, well, what are you going to do? You know? But at the same time, the way things had happened, we're like, you know, you just never know. Maybe if God wants to open this door. And we'd actually thought that early. That's why we offered 301. Well, A, because we had no money, and B, if God's going to open a door, well, let's just prove it's him that's opening it and offer as low as you can. So that was kind of our thinking. Well, he calls me back in 3 days, and you know that way where, so you're on the phone, you can't see someone's face, but you can tell that they're trying to keep a smile in because the tone changes. And so he's on there and he's saying, Mr. Barr, the owner and the bank have agreed to wait till the end of March. No negotiation. Didn't try and push us to middle of February. Nothing. We were expecting at least some pushback. Nothing. So we kicked into gear. We raised as much money as we could over there. I was actually over here in March 2018, and the congregations who support us and some others that they know, they were helping us do this as well. So I'm telling them the story. Now, I'm not one who jumps on the whole this is a God thing very quickly. I'm usually pretty careful about that. And I don't just say that about everything and anything. Even the Apostle Paul in Philemon, even he said maybe. Who knows, maybe. So I'm kind of a who knows, maybe guy most of the time. But with this, there was no other explanation. If you take God out of this, this is fiction. This is made up. Something's not right. So I'm over here telling everyone, God's hand's all over this. Has to be. There's no other explanation. There's no other way. And my co-worker calls me, and he says, Adam, we've got a problem. The local authority have, in the ecological study that had to be done on the land, have found evidence of 2 protected species. Yeah. One was the water vole, and the worst one was the great spotted newt, like a little lizard thing. The water vole is like a big rat, and the great spotted newt is like a little lizard. And they have diverted entire interstates for the great spotted newt. All right, they don't disturb this little guy. So he says, councillor saying we're not going to be able to build. And I'm like, Graham, this is beginning of March. I got a ticket till the end of March. I'm not coming home early. I'm telling everyone God's hand's all over this. What do you want me to say? I'm going to have to tell them, I'm going to have to assume he's got it. And he says, all right, I guess you're right. Carry on. So from then on, I told everyone the whole story, and I added the bit about the protected species. And remember, they're not actually there. It's just evidence. They come in the summer. And this is March. And from the last summer, they had found their nests and their droppings. All right? So I'm telling everyone, hey, there's 2 protected species. I don't know what he's going to do, but he's opened every door up till now, so we're just waiting to see what door he opens. And everyone's like, okay. So Graham calls me back in about a week, and he says, council have come up with a compromise. They have said if we section off 25% of our land and let the vole and the newt live there, undisturbed, they will let us build on the rest of the land. And I'm like, Graham, yes. You know, we've got a $5.5 million piece of land for $550,000. I said, tell them I will go and feed those guys personally every day, if that's what it takes. So that's how we went. That's how we proceeded. Well, remember the guy who had helped us with a lawyer? He, off his own back, he didn't ask us, he didn't tell us. He goes to the agent again, Gregor, and I don't know how this conversation went, but it was something along the lines of, this is not fair, blah, 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 the church is buying this land, 25% of it they're not even going to get to use. He comes out of that office with a full 25% discount on the price of the land. So now we're getting the land for £261,000, pounds, about $350,000. All right? In the summer, we're waiting for the vole and the newt. And they didn't show up. They didn't even come back. I had jokingly prayed, half jokingly in my prayers, had said, you remember those 3 bits of land the council wouldn't sell us? I'd kind of jokingly prayed, God, can you just move them over to their land? I don't know if that's happened or not, but they're not there. I don't know where they're living now, but it's not on our land. So now we don't have to section anything off. It's incredible. Now, we're still in this little hall that I'm talking about, and we're still growing. So when I got back in March of 2018, I got a call from the manager of the local shopping mall. It's a big shopping mall, bunch of retail units. It's got an office block on that side and an office block on that side. He calls me up and he says, Adam, how'd you guys like a free office up at the town centre? And we were up to the eyeballs with this and the work in general. We worked really hard, and then this was on our plate. So I said, no. I remember thinking, I can't handle one other thing. And so I said, no. 3 days later, there's a lot of 3 days in this story, but it's genuinely, that's what it was. 3 days later, I felt bad, and I called him up, and I called Jack. I says, Jack, we've been offered a free office. Let's go up and see. I thought it would be, you know, this little corner here. We could put a desk and a couple of chairs in it and build those friendships. People could come in and chat. Relationships, you know. So we walked in, and there was a nice big reception area, almost as long as this building's wide, and maybe half the width of the whole platform here. Girl sitting typing, we're saying hello, and we walked into a room. It's not as wide as this. It's probably from the inside of the pillar to the inside of the pillar, and from the very back, it's longer than this room. And there's little offices coming off it. So we're waiting for him showing us our office, and he said, so this would be yours. This is free. I'm like, to Jack. We're trying not to be too excited in case he thinks he can charge us. We said, we could worship. He was facing away from us. I said, we could worship here. He's like, I know. So we took it, obviously. And we got the big reception area as well with the lobby. We've got it all lovely and warm and welcoming. It's a great place to come into. Coming off this space, 5 classrooms, a big office, its own toilets, a big kitchen. We've got another room that's maybe equivalent to about the size of this platform we use for our teens and all of their activities and Bible studies and that sort of thing. And then we've got another room that's kind of like this little section here, maybe from the front back to a couple of rows behind Dan. We use that. You saw that in the video for our adult Sunday morning Bible. Fantastic. And room to grow. And we're growing slowly but surely. And I've got 3 minutes left. I want to tell you this. With all of this happening, the Muslims are coming in, and they're getting everything they want for nothing. Government is bending over backwards. People are there's a bit of unrest about that. People are getting fed up with that. And there's a little bit of pushback. There's no violence in Scotland right now like there is in England about that, but pushback. And I said to Graham, I said, something's happening. I said, there's going to be a turn. There's going to be a turn back to God, to call it a revival or whatever you want, but people are starting to, because the kind of noises were, not the words, but the noises were, that's not our God. We got our God. Now, these guys don't care about our God, but it's our God and not that. So I thought this is what was going to happen. Now we've got all that woke stuff over there. We used to get issues that you face about 5 years later. Now we get it about 6 months later with TikTok and all of the other. Just comes over quicker. So that's all over there. And see all of those families who weren't interested, just look after my kids, love what you're doing with the kids, great reputation in the community, but appreciate you taking my kids off my hands for a night and taking them on trips through the year. Love it. Now they're like, these guys might be more than babysitters. Because I'm not sure yet how I feel about God, but I sure don't want my kids coming up in this path. And now they're looking at us as the way they want their kids to be brought up and who they want influencing their kids. And we're getting more inroads into those families than ever before. So a baptism here, a baptism there. Last year, 12 baptisms, 3 restorations. I've never seen it in Scotland in my life. This year we've had 6 baptisms already. We've got another 4 that are really, really close and will be within the next few weeks at the very latest, I would think. God's opening so many doors, it's great. God's going crazy in Scotland. And we're struggling to keep up, to be honest. So the land is bought and paid for. We're trying to build a building. We've raised as much as we can in Scotland. We're looking for some help. Todd and Monty had asked me to come and tell the story. There's more to it. If you want to know, you can talk to me later. I'd be glad to hang around after worship and talk, well, not all day about it because I have to be in Nashville at 5, but at least until 2 o'clock. It would be the latest I could stay. But it's just, God is really, really blessing us. Listen, he always has been. The whole time he's been blessing us, but now it's coming to fruition in a way that we've never seen before. And there's all sorts of ways that people can help, but at least keep us in your prayers. 2 things, the very least you can do for us is keep us in your prayers and tell our story. I've got some cards with the QR code on it that you can share. I can send you a link. You'll see it on Facebook and the other socials. Share it with everyone you can. Even if you can't help, someone else can. And that's all we're doing. Appreciate your time. I know we've not got time for questions, but if you've got any questions afterwards, I'd be glad to talk to you. God bless you.
Let's have a prayer. Dear God, we're thankful for Adam and the work that he's doing in Scotland. We ask that you continue to bless them, that you continue to help them to grow. That we want them to show your love and what you can do for them in Scotland. We pray that you continue to bless Adam and his family. You continue to help their congregation to grow, and those here in the States that can help them. We ask that you continue to bless us, and it's through him that we pray. Amen.